Hello everyone, welcome to the Sam Fury Show. In this episode, Sam from samfury.com and Aventuras from sfnonfictionbooks.com discuss chapters 9, 10 and 11 from The Message Game, written by Ice White. These chapters revolve around how to deal with rejection.
All right, so ready to dive into a topic that's equal parts fascinating and, well, let's be honest, a little terrifying.
Oh, tell me about it.
Today, we're tackling rejection in the online dating world, folks. Specifically, we're dissecting chapters 9, 10, and 11 of The Message Game by Ice White.
Yeah, this book, it doesn't mess around, which I gotta say is refreshing.
Right. It cuts straight to the point. And speaking of cutting to the point, there's this idea in the book that really hit home for me. It's about those early messages you send, where you're trying to be clever, charming, the whole 9 yards.
Oh, absolutely. Trying to craft the perfect opening line.
Exactly. But the book says the goal isn't to win some kind of texting award.
It's true. The Message Game basically says to think of those first few messages like a pit stop, not the final destination. You're aiming for a date, not a prize for witty banter.
So it's about being upfront about what you're looking for right from the start.
Exactly. No point in wasting time on endless messaging that goes nowhere. Haven't we all been there, stuck in these digital conversations that just go in circles?
Oh, 100%. You're crafting these witty replies, but are you any closer to actually, meeting in person?
Exactly. It's like trying to build a relationship on emojis and GIFs. Fun for a while, but not exactly a solid foundation.
Not exactly sustainable. And this is where the book's advice is really interesting, because it talks about this idea of the unreactive swipe.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's all about, not taking the bait when you encounter negativity.
Okay, unreactive swipe. I'm intrigued. Break that down for me.
So imagine you match with someone, and their opening line is some rude comment about your profile picture. Ouch, right?
Ouch, yeah.
An unreactive swipe in that situation would be you simply unmatch, move on. You don't let that negativity rent space in your head.
Ah, so it's about protecting your energy, not letting those bad vibes throw you off track.
Precisely. The book really emphasizes building resilience, which is super key in the dating world, Because if you're dwelling on every ghosting, every rude message, you're basically carrying around emotional baggage.
That reminds me of this blog post I read. The writer was saying how they used to spend hours dissecting messages, wondering if the silence meant they were boring or if the person's phone had, fallen into a black hole.
Oh, it's so easy to overthink things, especially when you don't have those face-to-face cues to go on.
Right. And with this whole unreactive swipe thing, it's about accepting that, hey, you're not going to click with everyone, and that's okay.
Exactly. And sometimes it's not even about you. The other person might be going through something, have their own insecurities, or maybe they're just terrible texters. Who knows?
Or maybe their phone really did fall into a black hole.
You never know. But the point is, you don't always have all the answers, and sometimes you just got to move on.
It's that saying, don't give them rent-free space in your head.
Right. And that ties into another big thing the Message Game talks about: managing expectations, especially in those early stages of dating.
Which, let's be real, is so easy to get caught up in the excitement, the what-ifs.
Totally. And that's where the book's focus on red flags comes in, particularly this idea of, and I'm sure many people have encountered this, princess mentality.
Oh, I've definitely seen that. And the book does not hold back on calling out some pretty specific red flags.
It's true. If you hear someone say, I don't do that for a man, or that's a man's job, that's a red flag.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, hold on a minute. And just to be clear, this isn't about saying women shouldn't have standards or expectations.
Not at all.
It's about recognizing that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and a balance of give and take.
Absolutely. No one wants to feel like they're auditioning for the role of a servant in a period drama, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how can someone tell if someone's expectations are reasonable versus full-blown princess mentality territory?
That's a great question. I think it comes down to paying attention to how they're acting, their communication patterns. Are they making demands? Expecting you to bend over backwards without giving much in return? Those are some things to watch out for.
So it's about being mindful of how someone treats you, how their expectations make you feel. If you're constantly twisting yourself into a pretzel to please someone and they're not reciprocating, red flag. It's like, dating should be a two-way street, not a one-way dictatorship.
Exactly. And speaking of two-way streets, the Message Game dives into this whole world of cancellations, right? Sometimes they're unavoidable, life happens, But it's how someone handles a cancellation that really tells the story.
Okay, so how do you tell the difference between a genuine, oh no, something came up, cancellation, and like a get out of jail free flake?
Well, the book says pay attention to the rescheduling. Did they apologize, like sincerely and quickly try to find a new time, or did they just leave you hanging?
It's all about the follow through.
Yeah.
Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. And it goes both ways. If you're really into someone, you'll also put in the effort to reschedule, right? It shows you're invested.
It's a two-way street of respect, basically. Now, while we're talking red flags, I got to ask about flaking in general. It's like the ultimate dating app disappearing act.
It's the worst.
What's the book's take on those who vanish into thin air?
Well, the message game calls out flakes as those who cancel last minute or just poof, don't show up at all.
Right.
But the author says don't be too quick to jump to conclusions.
Because sometimes there is a legitimate reason.
Exactly. While constantly flaking is definitely a red flag, sometimes, especially early on, it's just mismatched expectations. What one person thinks is flaky, another person might see as cautious.
That's true. I was reading this podcast summary, and it talked about how different communication styles can be misinterpreted as disinterest, especially early on.
Totally. Which is why it's so important to communicate clearly. If you're unsure about someone's interest level, just ask.
Sometimes a little direct communication saves a lot of heartache later. But going back to those disappearing acts for a sec, what about ghosting? Like the ultimate silent treatment.
Oh, it's brutal. But the message game says try not to take it personally.
Easier said than done, though, right? When you put yourself out there.
Oh, absolutely. But remember, resilience is key. Dwelling on those unanswered messages, trying to figure out why, it just keeps you stuck in that negative loop.
Like that saying, don't give them rent-free space in your head. Sometimes it's really more about them and their own stuff, not you.
Exactly. We rarely have the full story. It's usually healthier to just, accept it and move on.
It's a good reminder. Speaking of reminders, the book also talks about receiving negativity, like feedback, constructively.
Oh, yeah, that's important. Because, let's be honest, criticism stings, even when it's coming from a good place.
It's tough to hear.
Yeah, but the book says those critiques, however they're delivered, can actually be opportunities to learn and grow.
It's about separating the message from the messenger, I guess.
Right. Filter out the noise and find any truth that might be there.
Like panning for gold. Sometimes you got to sift through a lot of dirt.
Exactly.
So what about giving feedback? It's a tough one being honest, but not too harsh.
It's a balancing act. The message game emphasizes being direct, but also respectful. Focus on specific things, not making generalizations. Like, instead of saying, you always do this, say, hey, I noticed this.
And tone matters, too.
Yeah.
Even if the feedback is valid, if it's delivered in a harsh way, it's going to sting.
100%. It's about honesty and empathy. Find that balance.
Now, I know we've focused a lot on the challenges, but the message game also points out some good things about dating apps.
Oh, for sure.
It acknowledges the awkwardness, but also says they can be amazing for meeting people you might not have otherwise.
Totally. It's all about perspective. Like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
Right. And that leads to another point, intention. Why are you even on dating apps? Are you looking for something casual, something serious, new friends? Being clear about that from the get-go, both with yourself and potential matches, is huge.
Huge. It saves everyone a lot of time and potential heartache down the line.
Honesty and transparency right from the start. The book also talks about crafting a good dating profile. It's your first impression, digitally.
It's your highlight reel.
And avoid those cliche photos. We've all seen them. The guy holding a fish, the girl in the bathroom selfie.
So many bathroom selfies. The book talks about choosing photos that are flattering, but also, real. Show your personality, your hobbies, what makes you you.
Give them a glimpse into your world. And speaking of glimpses, the book also talks about crafting good conversation starters.
Which are so important.
Because it's easy to fall into those generic greetings like, hey, or what's up?
Which no one wants to answer.
It's so boring.
Yeah.
The message game suggests personalizing your messages. Find something in their profile that grabs your attention, whether it's a shared hobby or even a quote, and use that to start the conversation.
Exactly. It shows you're actually paying attention, that you're not just sending the same message to everyone.
Right. It's about actually making a connection.
Because ultimately, isn't that what we all want?
At the end of the day, yeah. Whether we find it through dating apps or just bumping into someone in real life, it's about connection.
Absolutely. And while this book gives us strategies, it also reminds us that human connection goes beyond perfectly crafted messages or a flawless profile.
It's deeper than that.
It's about being genuine, being a little vulnerable, putting yourself out there, even when it's scary.
It's so true. So embrace the ups and downs, learn from everything, and approach every new connection with an open mind and an open heart. It's easy to forget that there's a whole person on the other side of that screen.
Yeah, it's like we get so caught up in the game of it all, the swiping, the profiles,
Yeah.
that we forget there's a human heart behind all of that.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up our deep dive into the message game, something that really struck me was how the book talks about dating apps being a great tool for meeting people. But, and this is key, those initial interactions are just a tiny glimpse into someone's world. It's not the whole picture.
It's so true. It's like, reading the first page of a book. You get an idea of the writing style, maybe the genre, but you don't really know the story until you've read a few chapters.
Exactly. It's so easy to judge based on a photo and a bio, but there's so much more to a person than that.
Absolutely. And this goes back to managing expectations. Everyone's got flaws, everyone's carrying something. Those early interactions, it's not just about showing your best self, it's also about revealing those imperfections.
It's about embracing the perfectly imperfect.
Love it.
Speaking of imperfect, we've got some listener questions, and they're all about those tricky dating app dilemmas.
Hit me.
Okay, first up, how do you know when to walk away from a conversation or even a potential match? What are your non-negotiables?
That's a big one. And honestly, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. But the message game, it really emphasizes trusting your gut. If something feels off, if the communication style is setting off alarm bells, or if your values just don't line up, it might be time to move on.
Trust those instincts, right?
100%.
Okay, next question. Any advice for dealing with rejection? Even when you know it's part of the game, it still stings.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like that saying, it's not you, it's me. Easier said than done. But I think it goes back to building resilience. Remember that not every connection is meant to be. Sometimes rejection is just redirection.
Oh, I like that. Redirection. Like the universe is closing one door so another can open.
Exactly. Maybe even a better door.
I love that. Okay, last question. What was the most surprising thing you learned from the message game? What really stuck with you?
That's a good one. I think it was the emphasis on being upfront about what you want. It seems so simple, right? But so many people are afraid to actually say what they're looking for.
It's like they're playing a guessing game instead of just having an honest conversation.
Exactly. And that really resonated with me, the importance of clear communication. No games, just honesty.
Be direct, put it out there.
Yes.
I love it. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the message game and the wild world of dating apps. It's been quite the journey.
It has.
And for anyone listening, whether you're a dating app pro or just starting out, remember to stay true to yourself, trust those gut feelings, and never give up on finding that connection.
Beautifully said.
Until next time, happy dating, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Sam Fury Show. If you found this episode useful, let us know with a like, follow, and share. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to visit samfury.com and join the free newsletter. As a subscriber, you'll receive access to all the original book summaries, which you can download as PDFs. No more than one email a week containing a roundup of the latest posts and exclusive content, which is only for the mailing list. It's completely free to join at samfury.com.